Welcome back to Warzone and welcome to my first impressions on the premium AMX-30 French premium tank, as I just mentioned, with a battle rating of 7.3, and it's very similar to the Tech Tree version, with one significant drawback, and that is the lack of the coaxial 20mm machine gun, and that has to do also with your ammunition choice. Now, the tank can be to some certain extent described as the French Leopard. The gun behaves quite similarly to the Leopard 1, that is. And the question is, do I recommend this tank? And it's a tier 5 premium, so you can research higher tier vehicles from rank 4, 5 and 6. But I have my preservations, I hope this is the right word to describe that I'm not okay with this tank. The tank by itself, by default, is really not bad. It's mobile, and that makes up for the lack of armor. The gun has a very good shell, 400mm of heat penetration, but unlike, for example, a Leopard, which is a Tech Tree version, you don't have to grind for it. On the other hand, you don't have the option for hash, you don't have the option for APDS or any sort of other ammunition. Technically, there is also an HE shell and a smoke shell, and you can see that I'm carrying some smoke shells with me, but that does not really make up for the lack of solid shot. And the solid shot, in a nutshell, allows you to reliably punch through certain buildings, to fire through wooden obstacles and so forth, where your heat shell gets absorbed, and you cannot remove the those objects, for example also on abandoned factory, the concrete walls, with a 50 caliber machine gun that this has as a replacement. So this is the big drawback, and therefore I quickly would recommend, if you want a premium AMX-30, how rude. If you want the premium AMX-30, think about putting a talisman on the Tech Tree version. That was actually a pretty nice shot, and killing the commander, gunner and loader of the FV4-202 from behind. And now I'm in a very good position, and yeah, this is the flavor of this tank: flanking. And you need large map. The larger the map, the better this tank performs. It doesn't really do well in a close quarter combat scenario, and that has to do with the unreliability of the heat shell. So one of the big factors that I always talk about when talking about the tank is how reliable is the ammunition, how reliable can you make the shots work. For example, it doesn't have to be an APAG shell necessary. It must do the damage that I'm aiming for. It must blow up the ammunition if I hit it. The same goes for APDS and all other ammunition types. And there we have the perfect example. So there is a tortoise, but I see that there is an M41, and I one-shot him. Really nice, really lucky shot. And the tortoise doesn't notice me, so the first thing that we do is immobilize him so that he cannot turn around. And we set him on fire, and we also track him, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I want to go for the ammo rack, because the tortoise has too many crew members to whittle them down. And to be honest, I am here shooting for the ammo rack, and watch this. The heat shell goes through so many layers of steel that suddenly the heat beam disappears right in front of the ammo rack. The ammo rack itself does not even get hit. And again here, ignore here the lag spike, that doesn't really matter. So the only thing that I should have done in this situation is to set the engine on fire. I heard a tank behind me, and I just didn't see that he was even more to my back, so to speak. So I set the tortoise on fire for the second time, and I'm not quite sure where the enemy is. So this is now where lag comes in, but again, it does not really matter. And yeah, there I got taken out by an FV4-202 that I completely didn't see, and that was purely my fault. That would have probably killed, in that scenario, any other tank as well. So situational awareness is the key. But what can you do with this tank if it really goes around? So let's talk about the mobility aspect. you feel even a bit faster on the medium terrain than a Leopard 1. And that is great, and you have even a lower battle rating. So mobility is really important with the new maps, the new meta. Having a good strong engine is really important, and we are approaching 20 horsepower per ton, not quite 700 horsepower for 36 tons. The tank moves around, it's maneuverable, it's quick, it's nimble, but it's still not a small target. It's a medium tank, main battle tank, whatever. The reload is 7.1 seconds. That is quite nice, but the ammunition is always in the back of the turret. I have to check out if this is now the case with so many more tanks. It's true for the AMX-30. You can load around about 20 rounds, and then the hull is free, and that might give you the edge in certain special situations, but I, again, would not want to rely on it. So 7.1 seconds for an expert crew, so perfect crew with the expert qualification, not the ace qualification. Then we have the OCC 105F1 heat shell, not a heat FS, but a heat shell. It's still pretty quick with 1000 meters per second, so same muzzle velocity as, for example, on German Long 88 with the APHE shell. So if you're used to this, you can make it work. And aiming is not the problem, really. I mean, yeah, if you're used to the Leopard with its quicker heat FS shell, then adapt to it. But the scope is alright. And there we have another candidate for the Darwin Award, I guess, or Lack of Situational Awareness Award. That's a Hellcat. And you can see the Hellcat could easily take on me, whoever gets the first shot off. And he hasn't noticed me. So Hellcat drivers very often think that no other tank in the game can flank, so they lack the situational awareness, and I punish him. Hopefully nobody saw me. And the one thing that I'm automatically doing here right is reposition. Not by much, and there you can see the gun depression. It's not really bad, but 8 degrees in certain situation for such a tank that relies on mobility and repositioning and abusing every possible situation or using it to its best, 8 degrees sometimes lags a little bit. And there you could see one other thing, the relatively low damage output and how precise you have to aim. And the question is, it's a premium tank, so you want to use it for research. And so I want a reliable ammunition. For a Tech Tree tank, you can sometimes work around it because you can play another tank, the previous tank, a tank of another tank line to avoid it. But with a premium tank, once you have bought it, well, you want to get your value out of the money. And with this tank, I'm not quite sure that you can do it. Sure, there are shots like these on the side of the turret of the Conqueror where the ammunition is, so I take my time, aim, and I actually blow him up. Really, really nice. Funnily enough, it was actually the warhead, not the propellant that blew up, but details. Then there is an M50 Ontos, and I just aim a little bit too high, I guess, and so I didn't hit him. Now, one benefit of the heat shell is that obviously, how rude, how good it initiates hull break on certain tanks like these. So, and I have a shot at another victim, it's another British tank, and we set him on fire, and immediately we get rewarded with a kill assist. So where are the enemies? Yeah, nice hull break here on the T92, and I'm worried about the T50 Ontos behind me somewhere, and I'm actually not repositioning. I actually made myself a obvious target. When the shots are coming from this direction, it just has to be one tank that pays attention, and yeah, the M50 Ontos is now firing at me as well. The situation is a bit dire, so I pop my smoke, then reposition myself, and then get the hell out of here. I'm not wasting my time here. I need to reposition myself. This is the key. If somebody fires at you, this is a general advice for tanks like these, reposition. You have the mobility to do so. Certain maps are limited, city maps and also maps with just certain open fields where there is limited amount of cover, sure. But that is the main problem, okay? And let's just compare this tank to another tank with certain characteristic that is completely different. The American 6.3 premium tank, the Super Hellcat. When I made the tank review a long time ago on this vehicle, I said something: the only thing that the enemy must notice of you are the vanishing blue dots on his minimap. And that means you really need to reposition and you need to silence the enemy. You must avoid getting shot even with the machine gun, because then you're lighting up like a Christmas tree on the minimap. And there are enough people that pay attention, and in the long run you will succumb to this mistake. So one-shotting the enemy is highly important for a tank that cannot take the return fire. Now here is the M50 Ontos and he is sniping, which is a bad thing, and we actually hull break him again. And yeah, this is my ace. Yeah. So the other issue that I have with this tank is that it now no longer can even somewhat defend itself against aircraft, and I preferred the 20mm. In the tank warfare, the 20mm with the armor-piercing shells, again, that remove the walls on abandoned factory, that allow you to shoot trees so that they fall over, and then you can follow it up with a heat shell, or where you can even kill certain tanks much more reliable. For example, the RE251 from the side and so forth. Nice shot here into the turret ring of the T-34, removing him. And this should give my team finally an advantage. I brought the enemy team in a position where they are kind of powerless. They need to invest. So this is the strategical advantage of such a tank. They need to invest other quick tanks to kind of counter me, to kill me, so that the main heavy tanks are actually able to, you know, do the frontline stuff. And I'm down to 2 crew members, and despite the quick reload with just 2 crew members, that was a nice shot here into this comet, you know, with just 2 crew members you lag kind of the reload, and so the comet nearly got gun on me, and that was a calculated risk. And I have no idea how this guy didn't kill me there. I have no idea how this happened. And again, we will see kind of the flavor of this tank. So keeping your crew alive, you must at least have 3 crew members to keep this tank efficient enough to make it viable on the battlefields. Again, because of the lack of ammunition types. If I would have even a low penetrating armor-piercing shot, or at best APHE, I would be really okay with this tank. But this tank doesn't have it. I guess because it's historically accurate. And so this guy didn't pay attention, and we actually go through the turret and take out the gunner and the commander and also the turret ring, if I'm not mistaken. And this is where the reload with just 2 crew members is too long, okay? And that was extremely lucky. That never happens to me otherwise. And watch this shot. Through the lower plate, and I just missed the ammunition because of the angle, how the tank was angled, but just a few centimeters. And that was enough for him to not take damage, and I was taken out with a bomb. Otherwise, I would have circled this guy. So the AMX-30, it's a nice tank to drive, but the ammunition is sadly unreliable. That's all that I can tell you. It's up to you if you can work around it, if you have the endurance to go through the grind with this tank, because again, this is an issue that the tank will always keep as a premium tank. And the tech tree version with the 20mm in lots of situations is just simply more versatile, despite having the same ammunition. So that's it for me with the first impressions on the AMX-30, the premium tier 5 French medium tank. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have somewhat of a help with your decision if you want to buy it or not. Yeah, if it is worth it is at the end of the day up to you. And I can just finish the video with my usual thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.